From Orlando, Florida and Tulsa, Oklahoma, welcome to the 1330 Podcast with your hosts, Keith-nachbor and Brent-Bailey. Pulling from nearly half a century of experience, Brent and Keith share unique wisdom and proven insight to build the leader within you. Interact with us now on Facebook and Twitter at 1330 Podcast or email your questions and comments to 1330podcast@gmail.com. The 1330 Podcast starts right now.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the 1330 Podcast. I'm Keith-nachbor.
And I'm Brent-Bailey, and this is number 4. Whoa! I mean, where is the time gone?
It's just flown by.
It is flown.
But I will say, I'm enjoying the journey.
I am.
And the process, which is what we were talking about last time.
It is what we were talking about.
The journey and the process.
We talked about learning during the process, or during the journey. You learn about yourself. You learn more about the team, the people you're working with, and you learn about the process of doing. And if you do that, instead of just trying to get it done, learn what you can. You become an expert at it.
Absolutely. And everybody likes to know an expert, skilled people at what they do.
Yep. I mean, how many phone calls have you gotten asking people, what do I do about this in youth ministry, or what do I do about that in youth ministry? How do I do this at summer camp or whatever?
If I were to say 1,000, it's too low.
Yeah, it's in that neighborhood though. It's 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
And if it's not phone calls, it's emails, and if it's not emails, it's social media messages,
yeah.
And if it's not that, it's running into you somewhere. Oh, hey, you know why I got you here? Can I ask you?
Yep.
And that's because we enjoyed our journey together of serving those 11 years together. It's wonderful. So, but the thing we wanted to drop on the journey as we continue talking about enjoying the journey is that God created us that way. We're created to enjoy a journey. It doesn't have to be a drag race. It literally needs to be a lifelong race, like Paul said.
Yeah, lifelong.
And if you look at your life, you're not built. You don't come out of the womb, cry, and then step into heaven, and that's it. We are built as human beings to go slowly through time. Our bodies are meant to grow. Our minds are built to mature. I mean, even both of us being in our 40s, we know a lot more than we did when we were 20. But our brains are still and our minds are still growing and understand. There's things that I understand now that I didn't understand 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And experience brings a lot of that, but there would have been some of that experience that I would not have been able to comprehend what I was supposed to learn there because my mind hadn't developed to that point.
Well, and the other one is that we're meant to continue learning.
Yeah.
As long as we continue our minds are stimulated, we continue to grow, and it gives us purpose. How many times have you heard about somebody who retired and they didn't have, all of a sudden they felt like they didn't have anything to do anymore?
Yeah.
And they retired.
They disappeared.
And died.
Yeah.
And, I had this conversation with my brother that my dad retired, but he's got a shop that he goes to. He walks out of the house and walks, down the sidewalk and goes over to his shop that he had built. And he's got stuff to do in there, and it gives him purpose, and it gives him reason. And he continues to build hot rods and work on cars and do all these other things. And it's stimulating to him. It's continuing the journey and continuing to learn and to continue to grow, and it continues to lengthen his life.
Yeah, I'm watching that happen to my grandmother right now. My dad's mom. When my grandfather died just a couple of years ago, when he passed away, her reason for functioning every day, and that she'd had for almost 75 years. Ceased to be.
They were married for 75 years?
Literally, they were married over 70 years.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, she's
How many
90,
times do you hear that?
Not very often. She's 92.
Wow.
And as though, once he went home to be with the Lord, she is slowly disappearing.
Right.
She hasn't died yet. He's been dead 3, 4, 5 years, something like that. Peyton was a baby. So, I mean, we're talking 3 years. So in 3 years' time, we watched her start to unwind like a clock. She's now in my parents' nursing home, and she's still hanging in there, but she's not the same at all, and she's slowly, she's slowly unwinding, and that's really what you see happen. I remember my father-in-law, Bob Harrison, whose home we're in right now, recording. He was talking about a famous minister whose wife passed away, and when she passed, my father-in-law said to another pastor, he said, I'm worried about him, because he's really affected, which obviously your spouse passed away but he said, I'm worried because if he doesn't find a new reason to live on, he'll be dead in 2 years. And he died almost 2 years later. Yeah.
And that's sad.
It is.
Because everybody has so much more to give.
Right.
And you'll see that in life, that's part of that process of finding ourselves. And look, Brent, seasons of change are going to come to our lives.
Yes.
And you and I have both experienced that, where, we've experienced tremendous changes over the course of our life. And, I tell people, anybody that ever tells me that they love change, oh, I love change. The people that say that they love change are the ones that are driving change, and everybody else is doing what they want. They're not necessarily the ones that are doing.
They're the people that like the new change that benefits them.
Yes, absolutely. The change is beneficial to them. They're not really changing what they are doing. They're getting everybody else to change to do what I want. I love change, Brent, when you do what I want.
Right.
I do not love change when I have to do what you want. But I just dropped my microphone.
So,
but when we come in and we start looking at these things, we've got to come back in here and say, okay, there's a new experience for me in this, and this isn't all there is, and that's part of that process of finding ourselves.
Yeah,
and and enjoying where we are. It may be hard, but if you'll come back and find yourself, and you're going to go on a new journey, it's a new trip that we get to go on, and when we look around at, I don't know, I look at Jesus. I love reading the stories and just the life of Christ. Where was he at all the time? He was with people.
Yeah.
He did his first great miracle at a wedding.
Yeah.
Well, why was he at that wedding? Because he was, he obviously had friends. He knew a lot of people. He was a businessman.
Right. Well,
he was a carpenter.
When he went to raise Lazarus from the dead, he went to their home, and the Bible says that they were very close and good friends with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus.
Yeah.
So when did he have time to do that? Well, there's obviously time that wasn't written in the Gospels, because if we don't read about him ever really hanging out with them, except when he went to go raise Lazarus from the dead. But they were so close, it caused him to weep when he stood at Lazarus' tomb. So he did obviously enjoy being with him. And I think back when I was a little kid, and you probably would too. Do you remember when your family would come over? You know what I mean? And It was like some of the happiest times. You just run around like a wild man. Like, oh my God, somebody's coming over.
Yep.
We're going to have guests at the house today. It was some of the most awesome, especially if they brought their kids and your cousins were coming or whatever, because that's what we're meant to be that way. We're created by God to go through this life that way.
Together.
Well,
and that's why God, that's why he tells us what over in Hebrews, don't forsake the coming together and the assembling together.
Yeah.
Everybody always applies that to church. And it does apply to church.
Yeah.
But I also think that it applies to life in general, that we were created to be with other people.
Yes.
And I tend to be a bit antisocial at times. I don't need people to energize me. That's not where I get my energy from, although I really enjoy being around people. And I need that. You need that. We all, on some level, need to be around other people. And it's not always just I'm on. It's just being with them that it charges us up.
Yeah.
When I'm around other people, it gives me vision. It teaches me new things.
It energizes you.
Yeah, absolutely. It does.
How many times have we been doing something and it's literally back-breaking work? Okay? And we would get our volunteers to come and do it with us, and sometimes it would be an army of 250 of them.
Right.
Coming to, and that's not evangelistically speaking.
No,
That's
it was literally, it might have been 300 on some of the events that we did.
Literally, one event in particular in the summertime, we would at least have 250 volunteers.
Yes,
kids,
minimum.
Teenagers, and adults.
Yep.
But we always started the day off with smiles on everybody's faces, and everybody was so happy to be there because they understood what was getting ready to happen, and what was getting ready to happen caused everybody to be happy. Now, the moment that you take an event like that where everybody's happy, we were happy all the time, enjoying everything that we did. We had so much fun doing it, and we were extremely productive. In fact, we were so productive we got called into meetings on things we still don't know why we got called into the meetings for, and got asked our opinion about things, and because what are you getting at, Brent? When you're enjoying life with somebody else, enjoying working with them, enjoying being with them, enjoying this journey, your productivity actually goes through the roof more than the slave taskmaster mentality.
Right, where you're being driven to do something.
And so I guess what we're trying to say to you today is, why don't you create some moments where your staff, your employees, people working with you and for you can have a moment to enjoy.
Right.
Well, I'm paying them by the hour. You need to do this as an investment to get more out of what you're paying them, because they will do more if they're happy. Think about the times when you were a kid and your parents made you do something.
Take out the trash, mow the yard.
Because I said so.
Yep.
And daggone it, you're going to do it, or you're not going out with your friends.
Yep.
Now, I don't know about you, but that just seemed to make me move slower, because I was so mad and so upset.
Did it last minute?
Yeah. Waited till I just absolutely had to get done.
Yep.
And seriously, what is that? Is enforcing your will on somebody else? Nobody likes to have that done. When countries invade other countries, nobody serves the new dictator and goes, "Yay, I'm so glad you're here."
Right.
Because they're being made to do it. But you give them seriously, with all the political discourse we have here in this country, there's very few people that really don't like being American citizens.
Right.
Because they're happy here.
That's why everybody else wants to come to this country.
And the president's not making you do something you don't want to do. And there's a few, obviously there's exceptions to that.
Right.
But he's not, causing the American people to go out and be slaves. And we're not doing things that, that they're having to do in some of these other countries. And what is it? We're allowed to live the American dream and be happy.
Right.
Which is the pursuit of happiness, which is part of the American dream. And guess what? America is one of the most productive places in the country, or in the world.
Yep. And your church or your business will become one of the most productive places around if there's joy and happiness there. We had an abundance of volunteers with us because we created an environment that was fun to be around.
Yeah.
The way I recruited people was find your friends, find people you want to hang around with and ask them to help out. And everybody always looked at me like I was crazy, but it's like, find people that you want to spend time with and bring them in here. And then this is where your friends are. And then we're going to create a big circle of people around us that are going to want to be here because we're having so much fun.
Yeah.
And if you'll do that either in your ministry or in your business, your church will grow. Your business will grow. You'll have people that want to be around what you're doing because there's something happening. There's life and energy there. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. Again, if you want to contact us, 1330podcast@gmail.com.
I'm Brent.
I'm Keith.
Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us for the 1330 Podcast with Brent and Keith. We want to hear from you. Find us on Facebook and Twitter today at 1330 Podcast, or email us directly at 1330podcast@gmail.com. Join us next time for another 13 minutes and 30 seconds geared to change you into the leader that you and those who follow you want you to be.